Hello and welcome to Section 4, Applying DevOps Principles and Setting Up CI/CD Pipeline. In this section, we will configure Jenkins master and use it to implement a continuous integration CI and continuous deployment CD pipeline for our code. We'll also deploy our application in an automated way onto an Azure virtual machine. In this section, we will use a new sample application called Parts Unlimited MRP, wherein MRP stands for Manufacturing Resource Planning. This is an e-commerce web application provided by Microsoft as a reference application for implementing resource planning in the manufacturing sector. In this web application, we can track orders, deliveries, codes, and view dealer catalogs for manufacturing parts. Let me navigate to the Git repository for this application and give you a quick overview of it. Here we are in Microsoft's GitHub repository. This application uses open source software such as Linux, Java, Apache, and MongoDB. This application has a web front-end, an order service, and an integration service. You can go through this repository and corresponding documentation to learn more about this application. In this section, we will quickly review this sample application and different features provided by this application, and then we will create a continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline for it. Let's begin with the video, Create Jenkins Master in Azure using Ubuntu Virtual Machine. In this video, we will create Jenkins Master and deploy it in Azure using a new Azure Virtual Machine. First, we'll set up Jenkins Master Server, which will be used to build and deploy the sample Parts Unlimited MRP application. Jenkins is an open source automation server that provides capabilities for building, deploying, and automating various DevOps tasks. Now, let's navigate to the Azure portal and start creating our Azure cloud resources. Now, in the Azure portal, to create our Jenkins master server, we need to deploy a new virtual machine. If you remember from one of our previous videos, to deploy a new VM, we click Create a Resource. Now here we can either deploy a vanilla VM and install Jenkins on it, or we can leverage the flexibility provided by the Azure Marketplace and look for a ready-made instance with Jenkins installed and configured. Let's try the latter approach. Here in the Create a Resource section, search for Jenkins. A number of search results matched our criteria. Let's select the first template appropriately called Jenkins. Notice its publisher is Microsoft. When given a choice, it's always better to pick templates published by Microsoft because we can be sure they're built and tested well for Azure. Select the first template and review the details which Microsoft has provided for this VM template. Once you're satisfied with the info about what this template is going to deploy, click Create. Here you need to configure your Jenkins master server deployment. Name this VM as Jenkins and the username as Jenkins admin. Specify a password for logging in to this Jenkins master. Choose a subscription which will incur the cost for this Jenkins server. Create a new resource group with the name MSPU Jenkins and then click OK. Next, select a location for deploying your Jenkins server and then click OK. In the Additional Settings tab, accept default values for most of the settings. Let's configure the required settings. You can review some of these settings for your information. For instance, if you click on subnets, you can review how Azure is going to create a subnet for this VM. You need to specify a unique domain label for your Jenkins server. This is the value for the fully qualified URL assigned to the Jenkins virtual machine. This should be a globally unique name. Using this domain name label, you'll be able to access your Jenkins master over the web. Let's name it Jenkins RM. RM standing for Resource Manager, followed by today's date, 30/09. Okay, cool. Azure confirms this domain name label is valid and available. Choose LTS as the Jenkins release type and click OK. Accept the rest of the settings as default values. And in the Summary tab, you can view all the settings that you've defined and then click OK. Next, accept the license terms and then click Create to start deploying your Jenkins server. You can track your deployment by clicking the notification icon. And as you can see, Azure has finished with our deployment. Let's navigate to the resource group. And here is our new virtual machine. So we'll click on that. And here in the Overview tab, we can see the DNS name and the public IP assigned to our Jenkins virtual machine. Let's copy the Jenkins DNS name. We'll connect to this machine over SSH. For the SSH connection, we'll use an open source and free client called PuTTY. So if you haven't done it already, please search for PuTTY on your favorite search engine, download it and install it. So let's proceed by opening PuTTY on the local machine. Select the Session tab, and on the right-hand side, you'll configure the SSH connection settings. Paste the DNS name that you copied in the previous step in the hostname field, and here on the left-hand side, expand Secure Shell, SSH, and then click Tunnels. In the source port, specify 8080 as the source port and destination as localhost :8080. And any guesses why we are configuring it like so? Well, Jenkins runs on port 8080 by default, so we're mapping our source network 8080 to target default Jenkins port on the remote Jenkins server. Click Open, and you can see an information dialog box. Click Yes to confirm and proceed with the connection. And then we have to authenticate ourselves. Type the username which you assigned for the admin user for your Jenkins server. In this case, I assigned the username Jenkins admin. We specified this username while deploying the Jenkins server in Azure. Press Enter. Next, enter the password for your Jenkins server. Fantastic! Now we have successfully logged in to our Jenkins master server over SSH.